So we will get started in just a couple of minutes.
Good morning, Kimberly. You're loud and clear and I can see your screen.
Fantastic. Thanks, Jeff. Okay, we have 33 people in the call and we are going to go ahead and get started. I just need to confirm we do have CenturyLink on to make this call and discussion meaningful. So Cindy, are you on the call this morning?
I'm here.
Okay, good. I would proceed without you. So I think we're ready to go. Daryl, are you good? Well, I don't know if that's you or not, but your audio is not coming through. Okay, so we'll just go ahead and start with a few housekeeping items while I try and reach out to him. But from a picture perspective, please, on the agenda here, you can see a link to go ahead and sign in, and that's how we're going to do roll calls. So we will call the meeting officially to order at 10:02. And it does look like we are recording this meeting, which would include all the text messages too. Great. Thanks, Daryl. Glad that you're on. So Daryl's good to go. And so we'll call the meeting to order again, 10:02 from a roll call introductions. Because this is such a large group, we're not going to go through and do a roll call, but we do need everybody to sign in. So on the agenda, there's the button to click to sign in. And hopefully you can follow my screen okay. And if you go to this tab here, the ESInet user group, you click that button right there to go ahead and sign in, and that will log your attendance. So even if you're not a voting member of the ESInet user group, please go ahead and sign in so we can track who's joining us on these discussions. Any questions on signing in? That's a critical one. And if you do have any questions, go ahead and if you can't find that or get to that, please put that in chat and we'll answer that.
Kimberly, it's Wes. I'm having trouble on my computer here, but I am on the call.
Okay, great.
And this is Andrew. Would you just would you mind copying the link for the sign in into the chat?
Be happy to do that.
Thank you.
Okay, fantastic. So the first item on our agenda is a project update. And so the intent here is for Cindy to go through and give us a status of the install schedules, orders placed. So Cindy, I'm going to go ahead and pull up the spreadsheet from our last update that we received on Monday. So we may have some additional updates, but all of the members on this group, we've got 40 today. So if you wouldn't mind going through just the status of the updates.
Would you like me to start with the open items or just go with the upcoming?
Yeah, let's just go ahead and talk through the upcoming installations and the updates and not the open tickets. We'll tackle that in another area.
Okay. So Park County, we completed migrating them to the ESInet yesterday. No open issues that I'm aware of with Park County. We did, and this is the first one we've implemented with the changes that we're going to talk about later, as far as the ring no answer timer and the take out of service flag. So we've changed for Park County to no, and changed the ring no answer timer to 2 minutes.
Okay.
Upcoming today, we are doing a reinstall at Moffett. We had the wrong equipment placed there. So that equipment is being swapped out today. planning pre-migration testing on Friday at Moffett and migrating on Monday morning. And then we have Huerfano County. We're planning to test Huerfano this afternoon.
Okay.
And Grand Junction and Garfield County, we are planning to complete the pre-migration testing at both sites on Thursday and looking to migrate them December 2nd.
All right, fantastic. And do you have any other PSAPs you're contemplating that could fit into the December schedule? Are we still pending CallWorks?
Yeah, I'm pending CallWorks at this point. We have equipment ready to go for several of the CallWorks PSAPs. I just need to know, because with the last conversation we had with Motorola, there was some concern as to whether or not they'd be able to get the SIP upgrades and technical support needed for SIP in the near term, or if we were in fact going to have to go back to installing these sites as CAMA and converting them later. So I pulled back on installing any of these sites. I didn't want to install SIP and find out 2 days later I needed to switch it for CAMA equipment, especially at Ralph that already has CAMA installed. So we were hoping to place equipment at 3 sites this week for CallWorks, but we pulled back on that. I do have a commitment from Jeff Tucker at Motorola to get us some clear direction by end of day tomorrow that will allow us to figure out what direction we're going and hopefully get some of these sites. And looking primarily at Grand Route and Federal Heights, although I do understand, at least at Route, they've locked down a little bit more due to COVID restrictions. So I'll be reaching out to everybody just to check in and see where we're at once we have a direction.
Okay, great. Thank you for that update. And since we have Motorola on the phone today, Jeff, if you can help give us some insight and updates for your customers, that would be great.
Sure, that'd be fine. Thanks for allowing me on the call today. As everybody may or may not know, lab-to-lab testing between Motorola and Entrado occurred less than 30 days ago. And that was pushed out a couple of times by Entrado. Actually occurred on the testing, and certification occurred on October 21st. In part of that process, we've determined that the CallWorks versions need to be upgraded to a newer version to be able to accept the ESInet. Currently, we've got engineering reviewing the scopes of work and rollout timelines that include those version upgrades. We're primarily focused right now on Federal Heights, Route County, and Grand County, and trying to get those completed by the end of the year. We had a PM assigned to this project last week, and discussion has been in development right now with our shops on being able to go to those sites and see what their availability is. Right now, I still don't have firm commitment from the internal engineering group on availability. They're looking at it over the next couple of days, and I should know more. My push is to try to get everybody, get these 3 sites on SIP in December, and I know that CenturyLink essentially shuts down mid-December, so it's got to take place the first 2 weeks of December. And like I said, I'm pushing to try to get that accomplished. Right now, I don't have clear direction and capabilities from our engineering support group on if they can get these 3 sites upgraded to the new version level, which requires multi-cluster environment. And that might be a holdup, but I'm not sure yet. So that kind of gives you an update on where we stand today.
Jeff, thanks for that. The big thing for Lumen CenturyLink that would help us in moving forward is just knowing that in the near term we're going to be able to do SIP at these sites, so I can go ahead and get the equipment placed and get the trucks rolling to get that done.
Yep.
Yeah. So as soon as we can get a thumbs up on definitely doing SIP, that'll help at least get the equipment in place, and then we can worry about dates.
Yeah, and Cindy, I will definitely. Yeah, Cindy, I'll definitely give you a call after this call, and we can discuss a little bit more in depth.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Okay, does anybody have any other questions for Motorola or Lumen in regards to the CallWorks upgrade and what's taking place for those customers? Okay, so Jeff, you had indicated for, being on this call, you are invited to our weekly calls, and you are encouraged to attend our weekly calls if you're able to, especially as we're trying to coordinate and get your PSAP scheduled for this migration. So please feel free to jump on those if you don't have the invite. Let's make sure we get you that invite. But it would be really helpful to all of us as we're trying to plan equipment and upgrades in your project, if you're going to need to go out and update your customers, that we can all communicate about that every week. So those calls are on Mondays at 2 p.m. Again, we can send you the invite to make sure that you can get on those calls and join us.
Yeah, Kimberly, I've received that. I was out of the office on Monday, so I wasn't able to attend the most recent one on Monday, but I will attend from here on out.
Great, thanks, Jeff.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Cindy, any other updates on PSAPs that you believe you're going to be able to migrate over before the end of the year? And we might have lost Cindy.
No, I just muted myself.
Oh, well, there you go. Okay.
No, I think that's it for what I think we might be able to get in this year.
Okay. And do you have any other updates for any of the PSAPs that you're working on for migrations, circuit order updates, or anything else that folks on the call today need to be made aware of?
No.
Okay.
We've got circuit orders in for, I think, all but 5 or 6 PSAPs at this point. So we should have the last of the circuits for the entire project going in here shortly.
Okay. So then I'm going to ask any of the PSAPs that are scheduled to migrate. So you haven't migrated over yet to the ESInet. If you have any questions for Cindy that you would like to ask right now. All right, perfect. So that would cover our project update for the status of the installs, schedules, ordered, placed, and open issues for pending PSAPs that need immediate attention. So as everyone just heard, we are tracking the dynamic with Motorola, their upgrades, and knowing if they're going to be SIP or if they're going to have to install an LNG, and then what direction that's going to take. So if you have any other questions about your project, please don't hesitate to email Cindy. You can also email me if you don't have Cindy's contact information, and we can get you in contact with the right folks at Lumen.
Kimberly, this is Brett in Pitkin. Sorry, I
Yep.
missed my chance to jump in before, but I think we're scheduled for early January, and we haven't heard anything from CenturyLink yet.
Okay, great.
Okay, I'll reach out. Yeah.
Okay, so Cindy, do you know anything about their circuits?
Their circuits should The circuit orders for Aspen Pitkin should be in already, and I'll confirm today.
Okay,
Because yes, Aspen Pitkin is scheduled.
we're scheduled
Early.
January 12th.
Yeah, I was like, they're scheduled coming up quick. So I'll confirm and reach out to you and make sure that we've got everything on track with that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, perfect. Anybody with anything else that is preparing for their migration? Okay, so we're going to go ahead and move on to update on open items for our migrated PSAPs. And I'm going to pull up our discussion items spreadsheet so we can just run through these items. So hopefully everyone is able to see this different screen now. If you can't, you should be seeing a spreadsheet, a Google shared sheet. And again, this is in our working documents folder. So if you want to track on your own computer, that's where you would find it, is in the working documents. So Cindy, I just want to run through these items with you and we can get some updates.
Okay.
All right, so the first item is with Aurora being the default routing for all of Colorado. So just to reiterate to everybody what that means is if you're on the ESInet and it's a global default, so no routing information is associated, your 911 calls are going to route to Aurora. And that was originally set up because Aurora was the only ESInet. And then when we would start to roll off or bring on additional PSAPs, we haven't circled back to make that change. So I just have this as an item that we're tracking so we don't lose sight of it and keep it forever defaulted to Aurora unless that's a direction that we want to go. But just I have this in front of us and I don't know if Aurora's on the phone and if they want to plead with us to make that change now. But just want to make sure we have eyes on this so we know that we need to revisit it at some point in this project. So anybody have any questions or comments about this item that we're tracking?
Kimberly, I just have a comment in, and I think it ties along with one of the items we were adding for discussion today. But I think Aurora, we need one PSAP that's kind of the statewide default on the ESInet. But now that we have a number of PSAPs on and all the selective routers essentially on net with some PSAPs, we have some options on trunk groups coming into the ESInet to set some defaults, which I think might help also with the other issue with the some of these PBXs that maybe aren't doing PS Alley or don't have things provisioned, where we could get a more refined level of default that's not Aurora based on the trunk group they're coming in from.
Okay, so I thought that we had to decide set one global. What I'm hearing you say now is we can set multiple default routing decisions based on the trunk group. So can we default route them back to our own PSAP if they're
Well,
in
it's not a PSAP level trunk group. It's a selective router trunk group. So yes, we still need a statewide ESInet level default, but there are some options, and I just got a list this morning from Intrado of the incoming trunks into the ESInet that I can put defaults on. So I can set individual defaults for each of these trunk groups. For instance, there's 4 coming from the Broomfield selective router, and there's 4 from the Colorado Springs.
Got it. And then you probably have some from the Western Slope. And so could you send this over so we can take a look at it as a user, an ESInet user group, and make some decisions and recommendations on this, and we can take it and set that discussion for next month. But that'll give us time to look at it, and then we can determine if we want to make changes, and then when we want to make changes to that default routing.
Right, absolutely. And I'm going to see if I can't get more details. Like, can we, of the 4 Broomfield trunks, is there any way to separate, clusters of PSAPs on each of those trunk groups, or is everybody on all of them? I'm going to see if I can get any more refined detail on these, and then I'll send you the list, and we can talk about what our options are for that.
This is Daryl. Cindy, that you just answered the question I was about to ask, but the more granular we can get that, I think the better our options will be.
Right, because right now I just have a list of filling names for trunks. And if I can identify, like I said, those 4 Broomfield ones, if we can refine them at all, I'm going to see what I can get, and then I'll send you the list. And I'll actually give you the names instead of just the silly codes so that they make a little bit more sense.
Okay, sounds great, Cindy. I have flagged you of carrying that action item to then email out to, if you want to provide it to me, and then I will send it out, or Daryl can send it out to the user group. And again, we will have it on the agenda for next month. So that gives us time to review it. And yes, anything that you can help us know what the codes mean so we understand what certain codes are in your network, that would be great, because we want to make the right decisions.
Right.
Okay.
And at a minimum, just knowing the selective routers, we could pick some kind of regional defaults to take some of the routing off of Aurora. But again, we can have that discussion once I get all the information to you guys.
Okay. Great, thank you. The other item is, we briefly talked about it on Monday, but we've been tracking it since February. So I just want to bring up the fact that this has been an open item since February, and that has to do with some additional pad ordering for PSAPs and getting those installed. And so the update we received on Monday was that the orders have been placed and that installations will happen for additional pad devices at Boulder, CU, and Arapahoe County Sheriff's Office. Did I copy those updates over correctly, Cindy?
Yes.
Okay.
And Wes and Kevin, is Wes on?
He is.
I believe circuits were in for Boulder. Is that correct? I saw an email saying that the Boulder circuits were in. I'll confirm. But I know all the orders have been placed for the circuit.
Okay. And just so I can state this correctly for everybody, these are remote sites that are requesting an additional pad device for the intent of evacuation, so an abandonment module at their location. So that request can be made if you are in a situation where you are a host remote environment. If you want to have an additional device installed, you just need to work with Cindy to get that request ordered, and can't say it's going to be real timely since we've worked through this since February, but I think the issue had to do with how to code it and how to order it, and perhaps those hurdles have been overcome. So
yeah, we were working through a contract modification with Intrado that I think took till June to resolve. And then it wasn't until, I want to say, end of September, early October before Boulder gave us the go-ahead to actually proceed with orders.
okay, so for the PSAPs, is CenturyLink Lumen charging for this additional device, or are you considering this as part of the tariff?
I believe it was part of the tariff, Wes.
I think that's correct. It's part of the tariff. Tim Kuckelman, I'm sorry, Goodwin weighed in on that.
That's what I thought.
I'm not sure if you heard me earlier. I've got 2 mute buttons to work through here. Those orders are in, Cindy, and Kevin does the ODD, and it goes over to the others, so they should be coming out any time.
Yeah.
I was confused when you said it took a while for BRETSA to approve it. I was thinking there was some finance approving going on there, but my understanding is that this is part of the tariff, and PSAP should not expect an additional cost if you want this added device in your environment. So thank you.
Yeah, no, I think Boulder was locked down for COVID restrictions for a while, and so hadn't moved forward with approving folks coming on site to do, because they want their Make Busy switch extended as well at a couple sites.
Okay.
But yeah, we're moving forward with all of that.
Great, thank you. And then the next item we've already discussed, which is the CallWorks CPE and testing in the ESInet lab. So as Jeff indicated, testing took place. They need to make some modifications. Some of their CPE equipment's going to need to be updated, and we're waiting to hear if we're going to be able to go SIP or analog for those deployments. So we're still tracking that item for all of the CallWorks customers. The next item that we are tracking is a change fee, and this item really needs to be closed out. I think we've handled this. CenturyLink Lumen provided us a response as it relates to a change fee and waiving that change fee to keep the project moving forward. So if you have any questions as you review that item in those notes, please let us know, but we do believe we have that worked out and documented back from Lumen. The other item is, so after this meeting, just so everyone's aware, I am going to close out the change fee. We won't lose the documentation on it, but I'm going to take it off of our list. Same with the tariff billing. The tariff billing item, just for everybody to regroup, it had to do with if some agencies are choosing to stay with the alley services on the legacy tariff, they are going to get double billed, meaning you're going to get billed on the new tariff and you're going to get billed for those services on the legacy tariff. CenturyLink is willing to waive that for a period of time because there are times where we can't migrate alley and it's not at the fault of the PSAP, or it's not really even at the fault of CenturyLink. So in good faith, they're going to waive that, but that just really is a reminder to everybody that you need to make sure that you're working with your CPE provider, that everything is being tracked correctly on how the alley services need to be handled.
And that waiver period is 30 days past cutover, right?
That's correct.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. So we have closed this item out. I'm going to go ahead and take this off, item number 92. But if you do have any questions about that, or if your PSAP is in that category, and you should be aware of that, we've got a handful that are in that category that we're working through, but and some of them, again, it's not your fault. It has to do with cabling or trying to get a sysadmin within Trado engaged to make those changes.
And just to be clear, we've got some that are past the 30-day mark now. We're not reinitiating billing because it is due to resource availability or just equipment issues that we're actively working through. So unless you reach out and say that you are wanting to keep your legacy alley or not willing to actively work on migrating it, we want to be flexible with that. We're not going to, at the 30-day mark, immediately turn the billing back on because we're still working through the issues there. So Douglas, Parker, Fremont, Castle Rock, Chaffee County, you shouldn't be getting the alley bill.
Okay, thank you, Cindy. We had an item tracked here, item number 94, and it was just the coordination and collaboration between Intrado and Lumen on the project and just the concerns. I think we've expressed this time and time again. Additional concerns were just tech supporting a CP. We talked about that a couple of, well, actually it was this week, about just CenturyLink even coordinating within their own company about what's required and what's needed for cable configurations, etc. So Cindy, I would just say this from a project perspective, as large as the scope is and as many dependencies, it's just really critical that we're continuing to tighten this process up.
Absolutely.
And so if other PSAPs authorities on this call today, if you have anything that you want to bring forward, let's make sure around this area from communication that Cindy's aware of it so she can manage that. Sometimes we experience these frustrations, but we don't bring them forward. And if she doesn't know about it, she can't regroup with the team and get it fixed. Okay, Cindy, so our two big items for the group, and I have three documented here, but the first item I want to talk through is item number 97. So just so everyone understands what has occurred, and we have more examples as well, I'm sure, that I'm going to just bring up. We had some people that have dialed 911 from their extensions. The 911 problems that we've tracked so far have come from multi-line telephone systems where they have gone off hook and they've dialed 911, but their calls did not route to their local PSAP. Instead, they routed to Aurora because Aurora is set as our default for ESInet. Previously, we believe these extensions, in some cases, when they dialed 911, they were able to reach the local PSAP. And I think, Cindy, you and I have had some conversations back and forth where CenturyLink may believe that that isn't the case. We believe that possibly that is the case. So there's just some conversation around, could these people have ever been able to reach 911 in the legacy or the current environment? And we do believe that in the legacy environment, they were able to reach 911. This has impacted some multi-line telephone systems from school districts where some extensions folks have dialed 911 and it has routed to Aurora versus their local PSAP. So we've challenged CenturyLink Lumen to, and I'm going to probably call you guys both names because I'm going to have a hard time switching over, but
I do too.
we're going to challenge Lumen and to talk to us about what we can do to rectify this issue. We've identified the problem. Unfortunately, we identified it when people have had to dial 911. And I know that kind of onesie, twosies, you've looked at it, we've talked about these accounts, but my challenge back to Lumen is how can we proactively understand what's going on here and how can Lumen proactively fix this? Is there something with the database that we need to do, a stare and compare, an extract? What can we do to get these extensions in the new database so we don't misroute critical 911 calls and therefore delay getting help? So this to me is a very serious issue. And Cindy, I know I tasked you with give me some solutions and answers so you can present those today to the group. So before I turn it over to you, I don't know if anybody has any questions specifically about what I just presented. Okay, so Cindy, did you have an opportunity? Yep.
Yes, I've had a flurry of conversations and emails trying to come up with some options or solutions here. And at the end of the day, I think the big issue with these multi-line telephone systems is we don't have visibility into where these numbers are either. If they have not signed up for a PS Alley service, and even if they had, they're responsible for databasing those individual extensions and the addresses associated with them. And if they're not a PS Alley customer, only having the system set up to only send that main number. In conversations, just trying to figure out why they appear to route better pre-ESInet migration than they do after. It's back to that trunk level default. Because they're not database, they would have gotten wherever they were going with a no record found most likely, but they could have gotten to the correct PSAP or close to the correct PSAP because of the incoming trunk group defaulting to that PSAP, even though the number wasn't provisioned. And we've only found in looking at these, I think the two numbers from Estes Park, databased in the selective router because they were old residential numbers that got reassigned to that PBX system and not removed from the selective router. But in other cases, they're not databased for routing at all, and they're not databased for alley information. But what most likely happened is based on the trunk group they came in on, they defaulted to the PSAP. And thanks to wireless calls, I think PSAPs may or may not notice that condition because they're used to querying customers for their location anyway. So if there's a flurry of calls, they may not notice that those came in as no record found. So that's where I brought up the looking at the trunk groups we do have and seeing if we can refine those defaults that would at least get these numbers closer to where they need to be. doing a database audit. We're still not going to know what all the PBX multi-line telephone numbers are that are out there. Because they would, 99.9% of them wouldn't be databased in either database unless they're a PS Alley customer.
So it sounds like right now the only solution we have is to refine trunk group defaults. Because we can't find them in the database, there's no way for you to know that they're in the database. Is that?
They're just not in databases is the issue. So even if we compare the two databases, they won't be in either one.
Okay. All right. Thoughts, comments, questions from the ESInet user group members? So Cindy, as people are working on coming off of mute to ask any questions, how long, once you send over that ESInet trunk group default to refine that and we take a look at it and we intend to have a meeting in December, how long does a change like that take to make? So if we give you something in December that says, hey, we're good to go, and we want you to implement these changes, is that a project then that would take months to get a resource assigned, or is that something that's going to be pretty easy to implement?
It is a form I need to fill out and submit, and I believe officially it's a 5-day turnaround on that. But I would request an escalation on that and see if we can't get it done faster.
Okay.
No, it's not a month-long project.
Kimberly, this is Matt.
Yes, ma'am.
I'll just say for Montrose, we hear what CenturyLink is saying. We're not going to have time to review the alley records for the incident we had for this matter until December. So it's hard for us to comment substantively right now.
Understood. Cindy, and I know Daryl had brought up something else from a routing perspective on this issue that was happening in Cherry Creek schools. How many situations, occurrences are we aware of right now that this has occurred?
I'm aware of the one that's the Montrose School District, Estes Park situation, and the Cherry Creek. Those are the only 3 I'm aware of.
This is Daryl, and it turned out the Cherry Creek School District issue had more to do with how the VoIP provider was configured in Northern 911 system. So I believe that's been resolved.
I was gonna say, because that one, the calls were going to Northern, which is definitely a VoIP provider.
Great, thanks for that update, Daryl. So this is going to be a really important default routing discussion that we need to have once we get the documentation. Cindy, I appreciate your conversation internally to try and find us a solution and a path forward. To Matt's point, I think now that we have everyone's awareness, it's going to take time for people that were impacted, like his county specifically in their school districts, to dive in and give some additional feedback. So even though the default routing sounds like it's going to be our next step forward to try and mitigate this, we may have additional requests of Lumen to look at after, now that users are aware of it, authorities, PSAPs are hearing this information, now that they can go back and regroup internally, and they may have additional questions.
Right. And for Montrose specifically, they are a PS Alley customer. They appear to have one number in the middle of their ranges that is not database. So I've been working to identify the account contact for them to get that issue resolved. Because we just need to find out we need to get someone to submit that specific number and any numbers that aren't on the list, and with the addresses they need database for them so that we can resolve the Montrose one specifically. I confirmed again yesterday with both our 911 selective router group and the 911 database group that one number that we were looking at is still not databased for the Montrose School District.
That's good info. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments on this multi-line issue? Okay, we're going to move on to the next one then, which is this ring no answer event. And this needs everyone's attention. It's a critical change in a critical situation that has occurred now for specifically Weld County on 2 occasions, 2 different events.
Yeah.
So I'm aware it happened on Halloween and it also happened last night. And if a PSAP has a ring no answer occurrence on their ESInet trunks, CenturyLink Lumen will default send those calls to their default PSAP, their backup PSAP, not default, I apologize, to the backup PSAP, and in Weld's case, that's ADCOM. But unfortunately, it's not just for that one occurrence, it's from that point forward until a change is made in the network, which requires a phone call into the NOC. So in our legacy environment, if your trunks were full, it would roll to your backup PSAP, and then the next call that comes in, your trunks aren't full, it still is delivered to you. The ESInet is behaving differently. So Cindy, would you like to brief all of us on what's going on?
Yeah, so essentially, I want to call them trunks, but they're really spans. We have 4 spans for every PSAP on the ESInet, going back to the ESInet core, Longmont and Miami. When you get a ring no answer event and it rolls over to your alternate route, the current setting in the network is that we take that span out of service when that ring no answer occurs. So if you get 4 of those, all 4 of your spans will go out of service and your site will essentially be abandoned until someone calls into the NOC to have the site manually put back in service. That is a yes/no flag that goes along with the ring no answer timer. I believe it was designed with good intentions that if someone abandoned their site in a hurry and forgot to hit the abandon switch or call to have their site abandoned, it would automatically abandon after 4 ring no answer events occurred. But in reality, I think it's unlikely in Colorado that that's going to happen, and it's much more likely that what we've seen with Weld, where some kind of event triggers a flood of calls to your PSAP that you can't get answered in time because so many hit at once, is going to happen. And so I would recommend that we change this setting to no across the board as our default. And if anybody in particular wants theirs set to yes, we can deal with that as more of the exception. But along with that, we should also look at changing the ring no answer timer. Currently, most everybody is set to 4 minutes on the ring no answer timer. I would recommend we set it to a maximum of 2 minutes, possibly even less with this. And essentially, it's 120 seconds on the Longmont side and 120 seconds on the Miami side, which gets you to 4 minutes. So we would change it to 60 seconds on each side. And we could go lower as well. It depends on how long you want the call to ring before it rolls to your alternate route. Given that a ring cycle is about 6 seconds. So even at 2 minutes, I think you're talking, 20 ring cycles? It's a long time.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I want to break this up. We've got two issues. The first issue is we want to change that default to no, which would stop that busy out impact.
Right.
And that's what your recommendation is, that the default will now be no for all of the PSAPs moving forward, unless a PSAP authority requests it to be yes, meaning if you ring no answer, you want it to busy out, you want it to stay busied out until you make that change. That's when the PSAP authority would work with you during migration to change it to yes.
Yes.
The next
Correct.
setting has to do with the time frame. So when do you want it to roll to your backup with a ring no answer environment? And currently it's defaulted to 4 minutes, and your recommendation is we're going to default it to 2.
Yes.
60 seconds on each link. So really 2 changes, and that's in front of everybody to just be aware of so they can make these changes. I've got concerns that this is something that wasn't identified by Lumen/Intrado and presented to the PSAPs authorities that have already migrated on the ESInet, and the impact to call flow and, in essence, service for the citizens. Because if the call rolls over to a backup and they're not aware of what's going on, they're trying to transfer it back and they can't. So you have all of that delay being created on a life safety event. So I'm not sure, Cindy, if you guys have regrouped on how this occurred without that kind of visibility and conversation with the PSAPs and authorities.
That specifically, no. I know it was a decision on to default this particular setting. At the initial stages of the ESInet planning, we were going with the recommended defaults on these configurations. So the flag in particular wasn't something that was on the list of things I could change. So I personally didn't know it was even there, because the decision had been made on how to set that flag before I started on the project.
Yeah, this is Mike Wallace, Kimberly, and Cindy. I agree. I think it was a complete oversight on CenturyLink's part. I don't think they had even knowledge of it. I will tell you, with the experiences that's occurred up here with this, I believe, in fact, Intrado, the vendor, was fully aware of this setting. I think the Lumen personnel did not have a clue whatsoever. And due to a system upgrade that's occurring here at Weld, in working through that, this is where this has really come to light from our side of the house. I think there's further discussions that I need to have with Lumen, and I've requested that this morning from Wes in regards to that configuration, not just from the ESInet side, but from the Viper itself, due to the fact these events, now granted, we had on Halloween, we had 3 shootings that occurred within minutes of each other, large shootings. Yesterday, we actually had 3 multi-vehicle injury accidents that occurred basically within seconds apart. So I find it hard to believe. I think there's another element to the scenario that's going on in Weld, and I need to have a further conversation with Lumen and possibly Intrado to understand possibly some settings as well on this Viper 7 project that's underway. That could be, because, we look at those type of incidents as routine,
Right.
From a daily perspective, and we shouldn't have that on routine, and we haven't had that historically. So I think there's something else other than that setting, in particular to Weld, while we've experienced it twice within the last 2 weeks.
And
Mike, and Wes did reach out to me this morning right before this call, and we're going to get the group together to review what was done with your Viper 7 and what configuration changes were done or made from when we initially implemented you on the ESInet, to see if that's impacted that capacity that you're seeing, where it doesn't seem like it's balancing your calls, it's giving you that full capacity. We have, as of 8 something last night, your settings were changed to 2 minutes on the ring no answer timer and no on the take out of service.
Yeah, absolutely. And I did get that notification, and thank you guys for getting that done quickly. But yeah, I agree. And I think you said a key word there, Cindy, in balancing. There's a load balancing feature in Viper that I believe we've got to get clarification on, because I think that's attributing to some of this, the way that they've got it set up. So yeah.
And I want to make sure everyone understands, we do, as we look to change this setting, need to work with everyone on their call handling gear to make sure that we're not changing these timers in a way that would conflict with anything your system may be doing. If it has an automatic call forward, especially at sites like Larimer and Arapahoe, if you have things in your system that say you're going to let it ring for so many seconds before you forward it to someone else, we need to make sure that we're not conflicting with those timers, that timer is set higher than this one, or however you want that to be.
So Cindy, you bring up an excellent point, because we have a whole call flow configured in our Viper in Larimer that we wouldn't want routing changes, forwarding done at the selective router. We want to handle that in our network. So how do we proceed from here? Are you sending us all a form that those that have migrated over get to review, fill out how they want this to be set, yes, no, and a time frame, and then we send it back to you, and then you submit all of those to Intrado for processing? Or what are the steps going to be so we can get you this information for all those PSAPs that have migrated over?
Yeah, I can get together a form that explains the two timers and settings in a little bit better detail. I am tracking on the weekly tracker now, where I've gotten a response and what we're setting those to. So I'd like to track it in there. And then, yes, I'll submit the form to Intrado and to have those changed. It is generally, unless we request an escalation, a 5-day turnaround for that change. But I'll let everyone know as we request the change for their site that request has been submitted, and when I have confirmation back that it has been made.
Okay, great, thank you. Anybody have any questions or comments on this issue? Okay, if anything is confusing or if you want more information, please don't hesitate to reach out, because there's a lot of moving parts here and obviously a critical impact to the way call flow is been experienced in a couple of situations. And I think to Mike's point, there could be also an element of your CPE. So as Mike brought up and Cindy reiterated, we're going to have to work closely with your CPE vendor on your configurations to make sure nothing is in conflict when these changes are implemented.
Kimberly, this is Mandy at Westco. This might be very rudimentary and the silly question, but to confirm, after the PSAP makes this selection on how they want this to work, meaning turn the flag to, leave the flag at yes or turn it to no, for the ring no answer scenario, doesn't matter if our backup PSAP at this time has or has not migrated to ESInet. Is that an impact in any way?
No, it doesn't. Yeah.
Okay. I didn't think so, but I just wanted to be certain.
Always great to ask the question, Mandy, because we never know. So thank you for asking that. Okay. So on this one, Cindy, you've got the action item to get us a form so we can, those of us that have migrated over, we can review that form, talk to our CPE provider, whomever's supporting us, and then get that back to you. And then Cindy has incorporated this conversation with all of you that haven't migrated yet. So make sure that that is being decided in your migration process. So moving forward, you have that done.
Yeah. So Grand Junction, Garfield, you're next on my list to talk to, as well as Werfeno. We set Park County up before we migrated them, and Moffett has already, we had that conversation and picked the settings for Moffett.
Okay, great. And then the other two items I just wanted to bring up, and I know we're running out of time, switching over to our 11 o'clock statewide 911 authority board meeting here. So just quickly, we are also tracking, and I wanted to document on this form, the 911 transfers failing on the admin line transfers for Summit County. They're going from 911 to State Patrol, for example, and additional star codes are getting appended. So I just wanted to add that here so we can track that, because I know it's still an open item.
Yes, and I'm working with them. It looks like they still have some 2-digit star codes provisioned. So I'm working with Aaron right now to identify all of those and get those corrected and tested.
Okay. And then the other item I put on here was just the knock and some concerns when somebody tries to have an issue resolved, calling the CenturyLink knock and the delay on getting somebody from the knock to answer the phone and then respond to a critical call flow issue. So I'm going to continue to track these, Cindy, so internally you guys can regroup on that and have conversations, but I've heard at least 3 different occurrences of that happening.
Yes, and I do have some more info on that. You do need to call the Lumen knock first. We are adding additional technicians to that knock that will be available to take calls. We are also adding a customer portal that you guys will be able to have access to, and I don't have a specific date, but next year, hopefully early next year, that you would be an alternate method for you guys to open tickets via the web and track status. If that is something you would prefer to do, and then you obviously wouldn't have the hold queue wait time. But
Yeah,
we are aware of the issue and taking steps to address that hold time issue specifically.
that's good. This is Weld County again. And Kimberly, I think I've had a conversation with you on it, but it has been, the hold times have been ridiculous. And I'll be honest here, we average about 40 minutes every time we call the Lumen knock that it takes, that we're on hold waiting for someone to answer. And I would say over the past 12 plus months, that has been a major factor at our operation.
Okay.
Totally unacceptable.
Hey guys, Elaine Mo here. I apologize. I came right in another meeting. We've been getting false alarms on our 911. I don't know if anybody else has experienced that, where we get the notification, I call in, they're looking at what's going on, and about an hour later it comes back a message, oh, this was a false 911. Ours is out of Maybell. If we can, and I know I've asked to have that addressed on my own, but I didn't know if anyone else was experiencing that.
So then you broke up a little bit. You said you're getting alarms. Is that what you said?
Yeah, they're coming in as an alarm, but then they're saying that that's a false alarm or some kind of bubble or burp or something, that it's triggering these alarms, but it's not actually knocking the phones out for our Maybell customers, which is what we're getting.
I have not heard of that with anyone. I don't know if anyone else.
No, I haven't. So Mo, can you send me some details of all of that and I can get that over to Cindy, or you can send it to Cindy direct?
Sure, will do. Thank you.
Okay, and Mark, you also put some chat information in there about transfer fails. If you can, and I replied, if you can email some details on that. These failed transfers is something that we've heard here and there in pockets throughout the ESInet migration, and we definitely, I think there's CPE changes, but I also think something else is going on with the ESInet. I don't want to miss that. So
thank you. I'll do that.
okay, so since we're running out of time on that, I'm going to flip back to the agenda. And So Cindy, one item that is the reporting tools for migrated PSAPs. I'm not sure if you had Entrado on today that was going to dive into that, but we obviously ran out of time. Were you planning on doing a presentation on the reporting tools today?
We had tentatively to do that, but I kind of figured we were going to run out of time today. So I think I should just schedule a separate training session. And then we can send that out to everybody that wants to join in to walk through the tools.
I think that would be great because we do have a lot of moving pieces, and I think that we're going to need to dedicate probably at least a full hour to go through those tools and be able to answer those questions. So if you could set something up before the Christmas break, so within this next month, that would be really helpful.
Yeah, is there a day of the week that's better for everybody, like Thursday, Friday, not
No.
Monday, probably?
Not
I
Friday.
I think it's going to be hit and miss, but we will definitely, let's plan on recording the session as well. So let's just look at what dates and times that the team that you're going to gather from Entrado is available to do that tool presentation, and then we'll record it.
Okay.
Okay. So we've covered the discussion item spreadsheet, and then I'm going to go into open discussion. So if we have any other critical item that somebody wants to follow up on for this call, I'm going to open it up to voting members right now. Okay, and then if we have any public comment from non-voting members that joined us today, if you would like to add any items or make a comment. Great. Okay, so we're going to move over to our teams. And for those of you that want to join us for our State 911 Authority Board meeting, I do have Val opened up that bridge, and we'll be starting that in probably the next 5 minutes. So thank you everyone for getting on this call today to go through the ESInet, and we will be jumping on the State Authority Board meeting in just a few minutes. So thanks everyone.
Yeah, thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.